Hello and welcome to today's session, Bringing the DXP Revolution to a Government Near You. And specifically today, we're going to talk about the Acquia UK Government Accelerator. Before we dive in and do some introductions, quick look at the agenda today. We're going to talk a little bit about the Acquia Open DXP and Acquia's technology stack, just so you've got some context. But most of today, we're going to dive into a live demo of the Acquia Accelerator, specifically Site Studio and the public sector design kit that goes with it. And then finally, before the Q&A session, we're going to just reflect on the digital challenges for the public sector and how the accelerator can help solve some of those issues. But as I said, Q&A session at the end, so please do get your questions ready and have them to hand for after the session, where we can hopefully dive in to where you guys need to. All right, so some quick introductions about who is on the session today. My name is Craig Hanna. I'm the product manager for Acquia. I actually came over to Acquia as part of the acquisition of what was then called Cohesion, the low-code site builder. And before that, we worked in various digital publishing, digital startup, and digital agencies. Julian, would you like to say hello?
Hi, I'm Julian Tedstone. I'm the Managing Director for Coherence. We partner with Acquia on this program to create the design elements that get used in the low-code builder. So very happy to see you here today.
And Darren, would you like to say hi?
Hi everyone, I'm Darren Coomber. I'm Production Director here at Coherence. I'm also product owner for the kit, and it's largely been my responsibility, backed up by my team, to get this to a good place where you guys can use it.
Thanks, guys. Right, so let's dive in. As I mentioned, I wanted to have a quick overview of the Acquia product offering and our DXP. And as we call it, the Open DXP, and open is the critical word there. I mean, not only is Acquia built on top of Drupal, which is obviously the world's largest enterprise CMS platform, and actually our current CTO, Dries, is the founder of the Drupal project and still the lead on the Drupal project. So we're very much embedded with the Drupal kind of open source community. But it's more than that. It's about how open the tools are across your technology stack. Likewise, we don't want to restrict what other technologies our customers are using, because we understand that, although Acquia has a lot of best-in-class tools to help you with your web digital experiences, we understand there's a lot of other tools out there that you might want to use. So when we talk about open, we're talking about open connections, so that different technologies can speak to each other nicely, and we don't lock you into a particular proprietary stack, for example. So that's what we mean by open. And to dive into the Open DXP a little bit more detail, what our products are divided into what we call two clouds: the marketing cloud, which we won't talk about too much today, which includes our products around email, for example, personalization, our digital asset management, and other things. And then Drupal Cloud, which is our technology infrastructure business. So, for example, hosting, our edge, security and edge CDN, and of course, Site Studio, which is the low-code site building platform, which we're going to look at a little bit deeper today. So let's dive into Drupal Cloud in a little bit more detail. So I think I mentioned this already, but in terms of pure usage numbers, we're the number one enterprise platform from a CMS perspective. So a lot of the world's largest sites, a lot of the world's largest companies use us. So everything from Pfizer and J&J to 50% of federal government. I could go on. We're also the only web content management tool with a low-code platform, which again we're going to dive into a little bit later. And we have lots of starter kits, as we call them, lots of accelerators that help you get to market quickly. This includes things like Acquia CMS, which is our accelerator, if you like, for our non-government customers. But today we're going to talk about the accelerator specifically in terms of the product set we have for government. And because we do so much work for government, as I mentioned before, 50% of the federal government or something along those lines use Acquia's infrastructure to deliver their sites, including sites like the White House and NASA, so very high security requirements, etc. We come out of the box with all the security requirements that you would expect. So in the US, we have FedRAMP, PCI. In Europe, the European Union's directives, ICO 27001, etc. So all the security and compliance is built in, and we're not just for government. 40% of the Fortune 100 in the States, names, as I said, like J&J and Pfizer and Nestle in Europe, etc. And of course, we've got lots of government customers here in the UK as well. Some of the logos out there on your top right. So extensively used, secure enterprise platform that's built for government everywhere. So let's just take a step back for a little moment. Think about the bigger picture here. For example, we know how much impact COVID-19 is impacting businesses, governments, and citizens. We've been talking to our customers, as you'd expect, extensively in the last year. So I wanted to share some sort of data points that we had. This is actually from McKinsey, but they said in a recent research piece that they put out that 70% of IT leaders is accelerating their digital transformation. That's not a surprise. There's been massive shifts in how people use technology, driven, by COVID or accelerated by COVID. I think they were coming anyway, but they've been accelerated by COVID. For example, in the UK, we've seen e-commerce double. Again, no surprise, but I think what we have to bear in mind is life post-COVID is not going to go back to normal. There's been an expectation set that we can do many more things online. And those habits have been set partially because of the requirements of COVID, but those habits will be hard to change back. So we believe that shopping in the high street, while there will inevitably be a spike post-COVID, do you think it will go back to the levels it was beforehand? We don't think so. And likewise for citizens interacting with government services, there's an expectation that government services should be available online. That expectation, as I said, was already there post-COVID, but it's now becoming more and more of table stakes in order to fulfill those needs. And there's something called expectation inflation, which states that once you've done something and experienced something once, you can't go back. Your expectation is that should be the same across all my platforms, across all my interactions with whatever company, large, small, or public sector. And then we did our own research. This actually comes from our recently published CX Trends report, which was talking to marketers about customer experience. And the feedback there was pretty brutal in terms of their technology challenges. 97% of marketers said that the technology they had in place wasn't optimal for supporting the digital transformation and the customer communications and the customer experience that they wanted to deliver. That's pretty much everyone feels that they're being let down by some of the technologies that they have to work with. And then we also talked to when I say customer feedback, this is our business owners, so the sort of business line owners, so not marketers, not IT, but the people that are responsible for business lines. And this again included people in government and customers in government. And they said one of their biggest frustrations is that whenever they're briefing in something, whenever they're asking for new work to be done, it feels like they're repeating the wheel all the time. It feels like things that they've done previously are having to be redone just because it's in a new project. And that's a huge frustration, because not only does it drive up the cost, the time, and the resources, but it just slows down that time to value. It slows down how quickly it takes for us to offer that value to our citizens, to our customers, etc. And of course, in a digital first world, when we're expecting our services and our communications to be digital, in a post-COVID world, that kind of time delay is just becoming unacceptable for many people. So in summary, what we need to do, what's happening is we're being asked to do more with less and do it faster than ever before. And that's really why we launched the Acquia Government Accelerator. What's included? Well, you have Acquia Cloud Enterprise, which is our leading enterprise hosting for Drupal, with all the tools that come with that. And then on the left-hand side, you'll see Site Studio, which is our low-code site building tool, which again, we're going to show you in a moment. But that enables non-technical users, non-developers, to take on a lot more of the responsibility for building and publishing and updating websites, therefore freeing those developer resources to focus more on delivery of solutions that require their skill sets, for example, services online, for example, tools online, etc. And then on the right-hand side there, you see the public sector design kit. So this is a starter kit based on the GDS to enable our customers to start building sites quicker, faster, knowing that they're compliant, knowing that the specifications built into the GDS are already out of the box. And then there's a whole range of other Acquia tools that are available, from security to developer tools, etc. And they are all packaged up into this Acquia Government Accelerator, alongside training and support that you would expect, and of course, importantly, updates should things change. Well, hopefully that gave you a good overview of the sort of Site Studio and what we call our Public Sector Design Kit, which is part of the Acquia UK Government Accelerator. I'm now going to hand over to Darren, who's going to dive live into the platform, give a live demo, so you can see pages, etc., actually being built within the platform. Darren, over to you.
Thank you, Craig. Okay, so yeah, as Craig just explained, you as part of the Accelerator kit, you get the full Site Studio package, but you also get the benefits of the government design system that we've recreated into the package, and that includes all of the components, the styles, layouts, accessibility feature, and we're going to dive into a live demonstration of this now to show you how that all works. So hopefully you should all be able to see my Drupal CMS screen. What we're going to do first of all is we're going to put ourselves in the role of a site builder or a content editor. Obviously those two roles are not always quite clearly defined, but we are going to work our way through a brief. So we've been provided with a sort of bog standard looking wireframe here. It's the kind of thing, some of you that are familiar with government websites probably recognize. We've got some sort of card layouts, some listing layouts, and a grid sort of layout. And we're going to use our components within the Accelerator kit to go ahead and build this. So first step is to go in and add our content. And we're going to create a basic page. And we are going to call it Feature Grid Demo. And then some of you might be familiar with Site Studio, some of you perhaps not, but we've got our layout canvas here, and that really is the section where we drop all of our components. So you can think of it as like a large bucket to drop your components in. And you can see now, clicking on this plus symbol toggles to show us the components along the left-hand side here. Some of these names will match up exactly as per they do in the government design system. Where they don't, we've provided a level of specification around that, which I'll come on to in just a bit. You can see as you hover over each one, you've got a thumbnail. The idea being it will help you quickly identify what those components look like before you drag them in. And you've also got a thumbnail view if you want to just see them all in that way, if you're a slightly more visual person. So what we'll do is let's drag a couple of components in. So every section of our page needs a section container. And what we're going to do first of all is we are going to go ahead and create this section here where we've got our sort of page title featured, and then we've got this large kind of card that sits in our grid layout. So first of all, we'll drag in a piece of text, and that's going to be our featured heading. Then if we hover over this, you can see the grid layout. So I'm just going to drag the grid over. Within that, we need a grid item. Think of that as your columns. And in this instance, we are going to create our text and media for our large big box layout here. And what we do is while we're here, I'll just copy paste some of that text across. So into here, first of all, we want to update our text for our heading. Every component has a format, and they're all laid out in the same way. And there's two ways that you can edit the components within this site. So the way we're looking at this now is the back-end editing experience. And you can see double clicking into the component exposes the form. And you've got a number of different options available to you. You can align the text in various different ways. You can change the width and the position of it. All we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and add our content in. So if we put, wrong one, isn't it? So it's featured for this part. You can choose which heading style you want, which heading element rather. And if you want to override the style of that, so semantically, it's the same correct markup, but stylistically looks different, you can go ahead and do that as well. We don't need this paragraph content, so I'm just going to remove that. And we don't need to link anywhere either. So we can go ahead and apply that into our grid. And let's just refresh our memory on what we're doing. So at the moment, our photo takes up about two parts of the width and against one. So we've got 2/3 there. If we click into our text and media component, we can change our media width to take up 2/3. And I copy and pasted the text across for that earlier, so I'm just going to put that in there. We can leave everything else as it is for now, just for the purposes of the demo. The one thing we will need to do, and this is a useful opportunity to show you, is you're able to change settings, layouts across various different breakpoints. These have all been really defined quite heavily for you based on the existing government design system rules and regulations, but there's some level of control as to how things respond as you make your way through the breakpoints. What I'm going to do is just hit save so we can see where we've got to begin with. And you can see there we go. So if we look at our wireframe, we've got our heading and we've got our large image with text across over on the right-hand side. Now, the one thing you might have noticed here already is that we've got placeholder imagery and placeholder text within our components. Now, that's a real time saver in itself in keeping in with the kind of the ideology behind Site Studio, because doing that means that effectively you can create a live wireframe, if you like, almost. So if you're testing layouts and creating pages quite quickly, you can simply jump in and have a bit of a play, drag things in, and quite quickly see if they work. So what we're going to do is we're going to work our way through a little bit more of this page. So again, we've got another grid item. This time we're going to drag a card in, and this is now, it's going to become our 3-card layout. And all we're going to do is we are going to set those. So this time we want a third of the available 12 columns. So if we set those up as 4 across the board, and then what we can do here is, again, time saving. Once we're happy with the layout of one card, we can just duplicate the rest of them out. Close down that section, hit save, and hopefully, fingers crossed, it should resemble something along the lines of our wireframe, which it does. So there we go. In almost no time at all, we've managed to build out probably the most difficult part of the actual wireframe, which is this feature grid section at the top. The next part of this would be to show you the other opportunity you have to edit these components. And I'm going to come on to that in just a moment. If we go into the CMS, what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump to, sorry, wrong one. I'm going to jump to a grid I've completed earlier. So if we just click that one open here, you can see how, if we were to continue on the process that we've been on, how we can build up our page using all of these various different components we've got from our library. Going back in here, now I'm going to show you the front end editing experience. So if we go back into our feature grid, we're just going to dump that next section on the page, which is this text block of listings here. And to do that, again, we'll just drag our grid in, drag our grid item. Again, we can define how much space we want it to actually take up. So this time we're going to take up 2/3, and we're going to drag our text block in. Close that down and go hit save. Okay, so there we go. So now we've got our next section in here, and what we're going to show you now is the front end editing experience. So of course, Prime Minister announces new local COVID alert levels. We probably want to choose an image that's slightly more appropriate. If we hit this editing button up in the top left-hand side here, it exposes all these little blue pencils. And when I hover over one, you can see this blue bounding box. What that actually does is it defines the area of the component you are editing. So if I click on that and edit component, you will see now the forms appeared, but we're actually still looking at the front end of the site as opposed to last time where we were in the CMS. So if I just scroll down to where the image is, and we look at our media settings, if we click on this and we go into our images folder, what we can do is we can, let's have a look, let's find a nice picture of Boris, and we'll double click on that, put in some alt text for now, Boris speaking, hit apply, and there you go. So you can see the component updates in real time, and in many ways it's much easier to build your content in the background and then come into the front end editor where you need to edit it. So if we just do that again with another image, let's go with another Boris image, and again Boris is still speaking, so we can add that again, Boris speaking again, hit save, and you can see now the content has updated. So you can start to make your way through the editing process doing it that way. Okay, so let's jump back into the CMS, because obviously you don't want to watch me populate the whole page, and we skip forward to our completed grid. Once you're at this stage and you've got your grid complete or your layout complete, it might be that as a content editor, and again, we're talking about time-saving measures, you don't want to recreate the wheel as Craig explained earlier. What you want to do is take advantage of what Site Studio allows you to do. So let's assume this was a landing page, and perhaps you wanted multiple versions of it, or alternatively, maybe you want to do an A/B test. You can make use of another feature in Site Studio, which is helpers. And the best way to think about helpers is it's like an advanced copy paste functionality. So if we go back into our feature grid complete, and we can see here we've got all of our components, helpers can be used to save out either a component where perhaps you've laid out quite an advanced layout. It can be used to save a number of different components as a section together, or as we're going to do here, you can simply save out the entire page as a helper. So if we go feature grid alternative, and let's just go to our layout helpers, hit save, you'll get a little notification pop up to say you've saved it, and that's all we need to worry about at that stage. If we go back into our content, we're now going to create our new page, so our new variant of that page, and let's call that feature grid alternative. Make sure we've spelled it correctly. If we hit the plus symbol, we've got components up here. We can now toggle across to our helpers. And if we go into our helpers, you can see there's already a number of them listed out. Now, these also ship and come straight out of the box with the accelerator kit. And really what we've done here is we've compiled a lot of the various different components based on common patterns we've seen across UK government sites. So some of these you might be familiar with, and if I just toggle this, you can see you've got things like full width heroes with images, text and media layouts, gallery layouts, grid layouts, and you can literally just drag these in and start playing with them straight away. So they're put together and already pre-assembled for you. And again, as we said earlier, you can save out your own. And here's our feature grid alternative that I saved out. So if I just drag that in now, you can see all of the components we had on our completed grid have populated into the page. Quick hit of save. And there you go. We've now created a brand new page featuring the grid we already built last time round, except they're completely detached. So I can do anything I want to this page and it will not affect the last one. And just to prove that, we've got a different URL up the top there altogether. Now, that's how you can use helpers to rapidly speed up your build. The next thing we want to show you is, let's assume that this was our B variant of a page, or, as is the case, certainly over the last several months, there's some kind of breaking news or feature and we've got to get a timely response out. Now, doing that isn't always straightforward. And we know sometimes it involves designers, developers, and we have to go, it takes days and days. Using Site Studio and the components available to you, we can simply put something on the page and get it out there quite quickly, obviously still adhering to our workflow measurements. So in this instance, we are going to go and edit this page, and we are going to put a prominent sort of update banner on there. And I'm going to show you how quickly you can do that utilizing our components. So if we take our section container and drop that at the top of the page, again, we'll take our text and media, we can jump into our section container, and we can use some of the conditional features here as well. So the best way to describe conditional features are the accelerator kit allows for that sweet spot of flexibility, in that there's enough in here for you to play around with layouts. And of course, you've still got all of the great Site Studio elements, components behind the scenes that will allow you to extend out and build further components if you wish. But for content editors, it's really a set of guardrails to stop them going too far away from what the government gov.uk site says they can do. So sticking to the kind of rules and regulations, we've already uploaded things like the dark and light kind of color theming, which will automatically take the choice away from the user as to what color text they might have. So in order to, work with accessibility guidelines. So if I just hit apply on that, and what we're going to do is we're going to do a quick update banner. So let's go COVID update. And I'm going to be wishful thinking here, miracle cure found. Hopefully we're not far off of that. I'm going to leave that as is, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to put in an image that's probably slightly more appropriate. Here we go. So woman giving the test, and let's say I want to prioritize the text. So in this case, we can make our media slightly smaller than we had before, so perhaps a third, and we could put it over onto the right hand side. Hit apply. And if we just go and save that, what we should have now, hopefully, is a prominent banner right at the top of the page, which when users come into the page will hopefully disrupt them and get their attention straight away, which we do, which is fantastic. So in no time at all, we've put our update banner out there and it's really captured people's attention. Of course, what you can do is, if you jump back into the CMS, if you want to keep that message on the page later on down the line, but perhaps reduce where its prominence is, you can make use of the drag and drop. You can drag it slightly further down the page. There's, numerous different options with this. And again, this is the advantage of this system, is you can really have a play around with it, and build pages out and drag them around and try things out as you want to. Okay, so that's how we sort of would update content quite quickly. Now, last thing I want to show you from a demonstration point of view, everything we've shown you so far really has been geared around this fairly kind of narrow kind of width, if you like, fairly standard look and feel that most of us are probably used to seeing on the .gov.uk websites when they're maybe a bit more process driven. There are, of course, other elements using this, partners using this website, etc., where you perhaps want a slightly more rich content page, or slightly more features. So something like the Forestry Commission, something slightly more light-hearted and slightly more, I suppose, engaging from that point of view. We can make use of the components in the design system. They don't all have to be quite rigid. So the accelerator kit, if I just toggle this edit again, what we're going to do is we're going to use this just to dramatically sort of change the layout of the page with just a few simple clicks. So our hero banner at the moment is quite shallow. There's not much to it. What we're going to do is we're going to upload our image into there. So we've got a nice large hero image, and we're going to make that a bit bigger. So I've got my view height here. So I'm going to set this image to take up 70% of the user's screen when it loads in. And what I'm going to do is I am going to change our foreground text to light. And then I'm going to hit apply, and let's see what happens. So you can see this text has changed from black, and the button where it was previously green, just by uploading this image into here, we've now taken over the screen, really. We've still ensured that, using our guardrails and our conditional features, the text is still legible, but it looks quite different now. And we can go on and we can just dig into this a little bit further and make a few more changes. So again, we could perhaps mess around with the colors of the text and the background for more impact. And you can see how that applies to a whole section at a time. And maybe with this box down here, let's go for our final one. Perhaps we could do something a little bit more interesting with these images. At the moment, they're quite small, hard to see what's going on. So let's break those out a little bit bigger, and we can get those to take up the full width of the screen. And there you go. So if I just turn off the editing mode, you'll remember we had quite a narrow, quite white space driven, sort of bog standard look and feel. With a few clicks, you can see the power of the kit and how different we can make this page look just by using the features immediately available out of the box. So that's the last part of the demonstration, really. There's just a couple more things to show you. And in order for you to obviously make best use of this and be successful, we've got a number of supporting materials. So also included alongside the kit, you get a functional design specification. And what that does is it lists out the details to what's included, what's not included, the governance surrounding it from a testing and accessibility point of view, and how the standards it adheres to. And then we've got the components themselves, which broadly speaking are broken down into two different sections. We've got the GDS core, which matches exactly all of the components that you'll see on the actual .gov.uk design system website. And if I just click into one, where obviously we can't supply a drag and drop, we've taken the steps to provide you with the necessary HTML that you'll need in the markup to actually style the forms correctly as per the design system, and also any notes you might need to be aware of as a Drupal developer. And then finally, within the functional design spec, we list out all of the components that I showed you a moment ago and how you use all of them. So if we click on something like text and media, you can see the various different iterations you might be able to achieve with that. We've called out any important information you need to know. And we've also provided what those forms mean inside the actual component form when you're editing it, just for a bit more clarification for users. And that's true of all of these, including the helpers. And the final things we've got, just to help get you started as well, we've produced a series of videos that will help you get started on your journey. So almost a quick guide, if you like. So that concludes my part of the demonstration. I'm just going to pass back to Julian now just to wrap up. Thanks for your attention.
So thank you for that, Darren. So hopefully that gives a flavour for what we're proposing, but I think it's worth us just delving a little bit into the why we feel this is such an important initiative. We see the government's design system as being one of the most successful expressions of government communication in the world. We see it as has an unparalleled level of detail, and an unparalleled level of research and sophistication behind it. It, however, needs to be usable, needs to be activated, it needs to be brought to life within a technology environment. And going back to what Craig was saying earlier on in the presentation, that means someone's got to build it. Someone's got to build it physically within the platform. So what we want to do is take away the technology barrier, the any obstacle between the content publisher, the communicator, and the citizenry. And we want to put them in a position where they can talk as directly and as clearly with their audience as they possibly can. So it's worth just iterating what some of the key causes are behind the GDS, so that we can just bear in mind, what it's there to achieve. And these are things that we've pulled from the GDS's site here. So there are more, but we thought we'd focus on these 6. So start with user needs, and that means, to us, it means finding the language and the method of communication that works most directly, most effectively. And Lord knows, over the past year, we've seen just how government has needed to pivot its communication, quickly and adapt to new situations on the fly. So putting the user first means talking to them in the language and with the outcomes that they need. And we see the Accelerator Kit as being a way of enabling content developers to reach users in a direct way. There's also an imperative to do less in a good way, which is to take away the things that aren't necessary, to focus on the things that the system needs to be doing, and focus on user outcomes. So the system that we produced is it's clean, it's minimal, it sticks to the GDS. It does exactly what the GDS does, but it provides, in addition, some key patterns and typical communication blocks that we think would be really helpful in terms of kickstarting what a content designer would need to do in order to talk with the audience. Do the difficult stuff in the background, make it simple to use. So, hopefully Darren has been able to demonstrate how there's a lot of sophistication built into the back end that stops or provides guardrails that stops the content designer from going too far off road from a branding point of view or from a design point of view. So there's a whole bunch of stuff that as a publisher you just shouldn't have to worry about. You shouldn't have to worry about the accessibility, whether it's responsive. You shouldn't have to worry about the branding, the padding, all of those elements. You should be focusing on your communication to your public. So what we've attempted to do is to build that in, so it's baked into the system in a way that makes it less visible to the end user. Iterate. Now, one of the overheads to public communication is the necessity to go through a publishing life cycle, which is cumbersome, that may involve additional development work, refactoring of code, front-end work. So what the Accelerator Kit allows us to do is to be playful, to experiment with new ways of communicating, to throw them away if they don't work, to amplify them if they do work, to refine, to test, and to do that without development work, without development intervention. This is about content designers, content developers working directly with the CMS to find the best way of communicating. Of course, this is one for everyone, so everything you would expect, responsive behavior, accessibility, all baked in. And of course, we've tried to make the back-end experience as intuitive as possible. So anybody who can basically work with Facebook should be able to use this system and have a successful outcome with it. But at the end of the day, we're building digital services, not websites. So why tie up your most valuable resource, your development resource, your technical architects in reinventing the wheel in terms of the front-end theming experience, when they need to be focused on the areas that deliver user outcomes from a more interactive and complex point of view. So you may need to be building interactions that are hooked into back-end data sources, into feeds, calculators, things that are interactive or bespoke. That's where your development resource needs to be focused, not in repetitive theming exercises that have been done again and again and again. So the accelerator kit is there really to help us get over those, so the content designer can start communicating as soon as possible, while the developer is focusing on what they need to do. So just focusing on what comes with the kit. It's built on Drupal, which is the world's leading open source CMS. So it's all built around open source functionality and everything that comes along with that. But it's got an enterprise backbone to it, which means it's safe, it's secure, it's scalable, fully supported. There's the Acquia Site Studio low-code site builder in there, which is the technology that we as an agency use to bring the GDS to life within Drupal. It's got our design kit, which is our interpretation of the GDS, with everything that you would expect to be in there. Not just the patterns that get used by Site Studio, but also the CSS stylings that your developers might use for the more interactive elements. There's also the commitment that through the lifetime of the subscription, that is updated and it's kept current, and that the new features that are being brought in by the GDS are included on a regular release cycle, and also that we're reflecting any changes in the Site Studio and Drupal code bases that need to be reflected in the design kit as well. And then finally, there's the training, the support, the updates, the specifications, everything that you or your partner agency might need in order to make this work. We've done that thinking. We've implemented many of these design systems, and we know what needs to be in place in order for them to be successful. So we see this as being a very rounded and full offer. So what's next? So if you want to get started, obviously we are available in the booths all day, so you can come and join us. Talk to your Acquia account manager, your partner manager, or sales representative. Everything is on G Cloud, so you can see the pricing there. And also there's a link here where you can gain more information, gain access to the video, and get points of contact there. So I think that concludes our part of the presentation. We'd love to answer any questions, but they will be taking place in the booth separately. You should have a link to join us there.